Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mindful Metal Jacket. I am Joe List. I'm glad you are here. As I say often, we have a small but mighty fan base, and I am grateful for you. The lighting is a little weird if you're watching on YouTube. I'm just going to warn you. My guest today, Raanan Hershberg, his lighting is a little goofy. I don't know why it does that on Zoom. If you move, the lighting flickers. Anyways, it's a great episode. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in, for watching on YouTube or listening on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you're subscribed. If you're listening on iTunes or other places where there's subscriptions, subscribe, leave a nice 5-star review. They're all very touching. I appreciate it. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube page and follow my other podcasts, Tuesdays with Stories, Joe and Raanan Talk Movies. And speaking of Joe and Raanan Talk Movies, today's guest is the one and only Raanan Hershberg, who is one of my favorite people, good buddies. We're neighbors right now. Steve Rogers, who's the most frequented past guest on this on this podcast, is out of town. Raanan's here, cat sitting. We're neighbors. But we recorded in separate apartments because it's easier on Zoom than standing in front of a camera. Anyways, none of that really matters, I guess. You know Raanan, I hope. He was the first episode of the podcast. So for now, this podcast is bookended with Raanan Hershberg for this week. And I was grateful to Raanan. I had a guest who had to reschedule, and Raanan happened to fly home and was staying next door. So I said, hey, why don't we do a podcast? And he's a great guy to podcast with. He's got a lot of anxiety. We talk a lot about being drunks and drug addicts at times in our lives. And we talk about death and anxiety, of course. And it was really a great conversation. I really enjoy and treasure all my conversations with Raanan. That's why I have the movie podcast with him. That's why I'm happy to have done this podcast with him. I think you'll get a lot out of it. He's got a lot of wisdom. I think I got some wisdom. And we had some laughs too, some funny stories in here. So this is one of my favorite episodes. And Raanan will be on again, I'm sure, at some point. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're doing well. Summertime, enjoy it. I always get the feeling that summer is going too fast. And I don't know, I have to stop, meditate, try not to hold on to it. And one quote I love that wasn't going to be the quote, but maybe I'll throw out multiple quotes. In nature, nothing hurries, but everything gets done. I have to remind myself of that. I'm off to Nantucket right now, Nantucket Island, very special place. I was just in Maine for a week and a half, and now I'm going to Nantucket for 4 days. So living my best life, my best New England life. Hope you're getting out there, getting to the beach, boating, kayaking, fishing, hiking, whatever it is you can do. Get out there in nature. It's healthy. And I hope you're feeling grateful today. If you're listening to this podcast, your life is more blessed than many people on earth. So hope you're doing well. Here's the quote I had pre-planned. By the way, on all that other stuff, enjoy this conversation with Raanan. But first, here's the great Alan Watts, who I love. Get ready, folks. You can follow Alan Watts. I almost said Warts, Freudian. Alan Watts org on Instagram. Great stuff. From Alan Watts. He knows himself to be one with all, for he is no longer separating himself from the universe by seeking something from it. We're all one, baby. All right. Enjoy this conversation with the one and only Raanan Hershberg. Farts.
Here we are. It's a crossover. This is a crossover hit.
Yeah, this is a crossover where you're in both.
This is exciting. This is my hair looks amazing. Look at this.
It's got a good
shine, flow.
We just talked for like 4 hours, so I feel like we're really getting deep.
Well, we just recorded a Patreon of our other podcast.
I don't even know
This is not your podcast.
I don't even know which this is. Is this Tuesdays with Stories? What are we doing?
I got a lot of shows. This is Mindful Metal Jacket, and there's gonna be There's some people that are really upset to see you here. I mean, it's almost like a sketch.
Wait, why?
Well, because there's certain people, you're like a nemesis on Joe and Raanan Talk Movies.
Oh, and then they're
Some
gonna be
people.
mad because you have fans of Mindful Metal Jacket who probably hate the other podcasts.
I assume, I don't know. Like, it's possible that there's people that are like, all right, well, Raanan drove me crazy, but I'll go get some, experience, strength, and hope on Mindful Metal Jacket, and then they just see your face here.
Maybe they're listening to Mindful Metal Jacket because of the depression I put them in, shitting on all their like childhood favorite movies.
It's possible. I mean, you've upset me, but
this is historical. I was the first guest.
Yeah, this is the first. If something happens, if I die, you'll be the last guest. Hopefully, I don't.
Oh, but that would be nice symmetry. It's like how Mark Twain was born on Halley's Comet and died on Halley's Comet.
Like on top of it, you mean?
Yes. No, like Halley's Comet's like every 75 years, and he died the day it went through, and then he died again. He was born the day it went. I don't know how it works. I guess the comets just like go through and then come back.
I tried to look at the comets section.
But the comet, Halley's Comet, came through on the day he was born, and then it came through again when he died.
Wow. It's funny because like there was like 90 seconds worth of extra words. Like I definitely understood once you said that the first time. I was like, got it.
Well, you seem so uninterested, but I just keep on repeating it because it's such a fascinating fact.
I am interested.
Are you not getting it?
You know what happens is I sometimes I play with these two magnets as like a fidget spinner, and then they were doing weird thing over here. So I should put them down and really pay attention. But no, Mark Twain, Sam Clemens.
He was born. You're so flabbergasted that
it happens every 75 years. His birthday and death coincide with appearances of Halley's Comet.
His last words was the N-word. He just whispered it into someone's ear right before he was like, come in closer. And then he whispered the N-word and died.
No, I don't believe that.
That might not be true.
Are you a Twain guy? Because you're a big reader. I know that.
Love Twain.
Yeah. How do you have the time? This is something I go through sometimes. Do you have this? I get so much anxiety, and I talk about this a lot on the show, that I should be doing more. I should be doing something. And I'm trying to work all day, every day. Like during the week, I take a lot of vacations and weekends. I do whatever. But during the weekdays, I'm like, I need to work out. I need to work on a script. I need to record a podcast, write. And then I talk to every comedian, including yourself, and they're all like, I watched all 9 seasons of every show. They've seen every movie. They listen to podcasts. And I'm like, I got to take more breaks during the day, because where are you finding time? I guess the answer is shitting in the bathtub. But you're reading novels, you're reading plays, you're watching films. You do a lot of consumption.
It's relative. I mean, you actually watch way more movies than me. I think I read more because, you always have watched the movies already when we do the other pod. And then so I actually think you watch a lot more movies than me a week. But I read in the bath every morning.
So take me through your day. You wake up and you go straight to the bath?
No. In an ideal day, I wake up, I meditate, TM, 20 minutes. And then I heat the coffee. I take an instant Israeli coffee. It's called Elite. It's amazing. It feels like cocaine. It's like, it brings me back to my Adderall days. There might be cocaine in it. I don't know how the Israelis do it, but I heat my water for my instant coffee. I do 40 push-ups. And then by the time I'm done, I said that like you're going to be impressed.
No, well, I have to just cut in and push back here, because you said you do 40 push-ups. Like this has been a thing for a while. But I think you're forgetting that we talked 4 days ago and you were like, I do 25 push-ups.
No.
I was appalled that I was like, I can't believe you think that's a workout. So you're trying to pull a fast one on me here.
It's like the old Louis joke where you're like, you ever tell a story bunch, but you end up telling it to the same person, but by that point you've already added a bunch of lies to it. No, but you're joking. It's always been 40. You told me to do more. It was 2 sets of 20.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It was still embarrassing, but yeah. But
anyway, I do 60 push-ups a day. And
I said to add 1 a day. You should do 41 tomorrow.
I know, except then I think after I talked to you, I immediately went to Tacoma and been with my family, and it's been awful. Like,
I had the same thing.
We can talk about this, like in terms of anxiety. I mean, it's your podcast, but like,
please, let's talk about anxiety.
When you go to your family, well, I'll try to combine it. The routine at home is so important for me. Mm-hmm. And then I go to my family and it's all thrown off to the point where it's like very depressed. Like I get I love my family, but it's like a mental crisis a little. Cause like at home, I do the 40 push-ups, then I drink the coffee and read in the, no. Then I drink coffee and write 10 pages or 5 pages.
10 pages?
5 pages.
It's a big mistake.
I bet 5 pages.
Okay.
I write 5 pages. I write 22 pages. I'm just lying. No, I write 5 pages. It's a big font, but I write,
so you type, you don't write.
I type. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't do this bullshit. Everyone's doing the like, I hate this fucking, like, they just start journaling, stream of conscious. They're just like, the potato goes to the mark or whatever shit. It's like, no, I just try to write jokes for 5 pages.
Oh, that's impressive. I mean, that's hard to do, to just sit and crank out jokes.
I'm telling you, it's this coffee. This coffee really fucking, it's really good. And
this is interesting. I want to come back, but I'll host if you don't mind. But it's interesting because I drank the Starbucks down the street because I have a very routine too. And I drank them out of the green tea I like. So I was like, I'll drink black tea. And it's fucking me up because like my heart is like racing. Like I'm not used to.
Fuck you up. Black tea is much more intense
than green tea. Yes, but not more than coffee. It's less than coffee still.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying you're drinking black tea instead of yeah.
Tea.
Yeah, but to go to green tea to black tea is big.
Yes. So like the last few days, I'm like, my heart is like jittering. I'm like, I feel anxious. You can write like that, or you're just used to it, I guess.
First of all, I'm shocked that you would just adjust. Like I thought you were green tea for life. I'm surprised you didn't just go somewhere else.
No, I was. And I started walking to the other Starbucks that's far away. I tried 2 other. I don't want you to make it seem like I'm just like, I go with the flow. Like I went to 3 other businesses.
Do not make it seem like that. Yeah, I was about to say, this did not just, knowing you did not just,
No, I went to 3 other businesses and I hated their system of delivering the tea and the whatever kind of tea they had, whatever bullshit. And then now I've switched to black tea for a few days and this is what I'm presenting to you is that I'm like, I'm losing my mind from drinking it.
It's tough. I mean, I'll tell you a nightmare. When I was with Whitney this weekend, one night I was drinking, they had like decaf tea or herbal tea. And I was about to go on and I looked and I took the wrong bag. It was black tea.
Oh,
right
Jesus.
before I went on stage, which is a huge. I love talking to you because you know how like anyone else would be like but like how like I'm like my heart's like racing now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not used to it. I don't do drugs or anything, but I have this too. Like I went to the movies yesterday, I ate a bag of M&Ms, and this happens too with like mindfulness practice. I try to be much more mindful of feelings and body and consciousness and all these things. And I eat a bag of M&Ms now, and I'm like sitting there, like I can feel my heart racing, and I just feel like jittery from eating a pound of chocolate.
We used to, like me and you specifically, we used to do alcohol and drugs and have no effect. And now I feel like I'm so sensitive to everything. Like maybe it's just part of getting older, but I do drink 2 big things of coffee now. And usually for me, when I'm having really bad anxiety, I'm not drinking any coffee. So you always know if I'm doing bad, it means I've had to take a break from coffee. So I've actually so for me, when I drink 2 cups of coffee a day, it's a sign that I'm doing okay.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm better at controlling anxiety now, or accepting anxiety, which in turn controls anxiety. But when I get jittery like that, the other thing I do with my routine, I like to get up, have my morning cup of tea, drink all of it before I eat anything, then eat. I usually have a meeting or something or do some writing, then go out and get another cup of tea. I take a break. But you can't have an extra cup of tea if you're drinking black tea. Then you're just
no.
completely psychotic.
Might as well do fucking crystal meth at that point. Like,
I feel like we're just 2 old Jews having a conversation now. I hope this is helpful to somebody.
Well, it is like I really have pulled like such a 180 in my life. I was doing 90 milligrams of Adderall a day back in the day.
Is that a lot of milligrams? I don't know. I've never taken Adderall ever.
That's a lot. Like I was addicted. I accidentally did bath salts once. I did cocaine. And now it's like I've become such a square. I legitimately was worried I relapsed on kombucha the other day because like there's like a little bit of alcohol in it, and I think it gave me like a euphoric recall. Oh
wow. So
it's like I'm literally at the point where I'm worried I'm relapsing on like I don't even know what kombucha is. So it's like. I've definitely you definitely go the other way, but yeah, so I drink 2 cups of coffee now, and then I write, and then I work on a screenplay with my buddy, and then I read in the bath, and that's Oh, and I run too. I try to run, or I call it running, but it's on my exercise bike.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good routine. So you're doing some work. I mean, do you have the thing that I have though, that you're like, yeah, I wrote, but nothing really came of it. I should be doing this other thing. I should be working on that. Or I'm writing a screenplay, but it's never going to go anywhere. Or I'm writing bits, but nothing. Do you criticize like that? I'm so self-critical.
I feel like the definition of a neurotic is whatever choice you made, you feel like you've made the wrong choice. You just constantly look at the other lane you could have been on, you know?
Yeah, I do that constantly. And I have to stop and be like, I've accomplished a lot of things. And I do this too, where we work at night. I have to remind myself that it's like 11:30 a.m. and I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And I'm like, I have 3 sets tonight and I'm recording a podcast at 5, whatever. Like today, you and I just did a bonus for our other podcast, Joe and Raanan Talk Movies. And then I'm recording this podcast and I still have a cellar spot. And I had an hour-long conversation with this actor that I'm collaborating with. And then I ran a meeting with people about mental health, thing, and did a bunch of other. I talked to my mother for a half hour. It's like there's plenty I'm doing, and I went to the gym and went for a run.
Well, I feel like when other people have 9 to 5s and they work in that time, and then the rest of the time they fucking play Xbox or tune out their wife or whatever. I feel like we just work all the time. We might not, you know what I mean? It's just to me, I'm just constantly feel like I'm working. But I've embraced it. I'm just like, to me, being a workaholic, I mean, maybe it's bad, but I try to and you've done a good job of how to take breaks and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I'm not a workaholic. I'm like more of a worryholic because I just went to Maine for a week and I'm going to Nantucket tomorrow.
But you work hard. You do 42 podcasts. You work hard. You know?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's funny. Somebody called me lazy on social media, and of course, everything wrong in life starts with social media now. Some guy was like, "You're fucking hilarious and talented. You're just lazy," and I'm like, "I'm not lazy. I am trying to balance my life. I'm just not a fucking maniac that is obsessed with content and success. I understand. I value different things."
No, you do it right, and you're always like you figure out a way to be sustainable. So you don't have a mental health crisis. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people work so hard, but eventually they're going to have a nervous breakdown and then they're going to have to stop working for 2 years. You know what I mean? You're figuring out a way to be sustainable.
I'm trying to, and from coming from that, because I used to be a fucking lunatic alcoholic who got no work done ever at all. Too. Yeah. Do you ever have this? I've been sober 8.5 years now, but when I was drinking, I was a maniac, and obviously I didn't meditate properly, and I've gotten so much better at meditation and involved in, first of all, recovery from alcohol and therapy and meditation and exercise, that now I'm like, God, I'm so good at being mindful and aware and conscious and recognizing selflessness and that everything's just an appearance and consciousness. And I've gotten to such a great place mentally that sometimes it creeps into my head that I'm like, oh, if I drank now, I'd be better at it. Or I'm like, oh, if I had mushrooms now, I could have a great experience. And I'm not going to relapse, but that comes into my mind that I'm like, man, I never drank. This is how people die, by the way, addicts. Yeah. I'm like, because I remember reading that Philip Seymour Hoffman.
I was about to say Philip Seymour Hoffman. I was about to say, as a joke, that's so fun. I was about to say as a joke, he probably was like, I bet I can handle heroin now.
Well, he did. I read a thing that he had said.
Isn't that crazy that we both thought that at the same time?
Well, we did 3 podcasts right before this together. So,
yeah. Okay.
But we've talked about on the other podcast, which is a great podcast. Everybody check it out. That he's the artist that's meant the most to me. Artist Death, anyways. And he's one of my favorite artists. I have a framed photo of him in the other room. But his thing with his relapse was he had quit drinking and drugging when he was 19. And his thought was, I've never drank as an adult. Maybe as an adult, I could drink and use. And he started drinking beer, and then that quickly escalated.
He's on record talking about that, before his major relapse?
I believe so, somewhere. Or maybe somebody said that.
He said
it to somebody, and then they said it. But I think he had probably said that the way I'm saying it now. If I relapse, someone will point to this and be like, see?
Yeah, right.
But I'm sure he said to multiple people, I never drank. And I've met other people that have talked like that are like, man, I only drank when I was a teenager. Maybe I was just immature. And then they try, and of course they fucking die or get arrested or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it's kind of like the thing I said about coffee. Like when I drink a bunch of coffee, it means I feel like I'm doing okay with anxiety. You almost want to have a drink to make you feel like you're no longer an alcoholic. You know what I mean? Like you want to you wanted that sense of normalcy, you know? But it's the same thing with anxiety. It's like we're always looking for ways to pretend we don't have anxiety, you know?
Right.
And I always want to be the person without anxiety. And so I always have the worst anxiety when I've convinced myself I no longer have anxiety. And then when it comes back, I'm so depressed and shameful. So instead of the time when I should be feeling good, just reminding myself, I still have anxiety, you know?
Right. That's exactly
Does that make sense
right.
What I'm saying?
It makes perfect sense. It's
Yeah.
perfectly, they mirror each other because
You want
they're
to
very,
escape. Yeah.
they're
the
very,
diagnosis.
they're very similar in that. And I've made this joke before, but I'm like, everything I have is stuff that never goes away. Herpes,
Yes.
alcoholism, anxiety. And you have to just go, I'm just managing these things now. And that's how I feel with like drinking. I'm like, this is my alcoholism talking, being like, I think
Yes.
you could drink now.
Because you want to be normal. You want to be the guy, the fucking douche who has like 2 drinks and like, all right, I'm going to relax and take a couple of drinks. But I also realize though, like with alcohol, because I guess I'm not as tempted. I don't know. I realize with alcohol, there are people who get trashed and that's not fun. And those people are very annoying now. Like when you're sober, you hate people who are really drunk. Like they're the worst. You hate them coming over to you. You hate them monopolizing the conversation. You're like, oh, they're talking. They talk to be a drunk is so annoying because you talk nonstop and you're the one who's not going to fucking remember it. You're not going to remember you being annoying. Like it's like I'm the one remembering and it's just you fucking talking.
Yes.
Like it's very like insulting. So when you see people really drunk, you hate them. But so for me, it's like, I don't think I'm going to drink again because like, I know I don't want to be trashed because those people suck. And then the people who have 1 or 2 drinks, honestly, that's kind of close to just not drinking. You know what I mean?
Well, I was always a guy that was like, what's the point of that? I don't even
exactly.
Like even now when I think about a drink, I don't think about having like a beer. I think about like, oh, maybe I could drink fucking 58 beers and it wouldn't be a big deal. I don't, the idea of drinking like a beer is just like,
oh, so you imagine yourself being trashed.
Yeah, well, not being trashed, but just like drinking all night. Yeah, I guess being trashed.
But don't you like, isn't it hard? Does it make it a little harder now? Like a way to encourage you not to relapse is how aware of how annoying those people are.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I was the worst, and I hate drunk people. I hated drunk people then,
right?
And then I would just yell over them. But I'm like, no, I think about how I was, and I'm like, I just cringe. I'm just like, oh god, that was fucking awful. Never shutting the fuck up and talking in these like grandiose ways and delusions of grandeur, all that stuff.
I did that with drugs. I would like take painkillers all the time. Like a lot of my friends, like I kind of had an intervention about like, it wasn't even about the drugs, it was about being really annoying. Like I was just like, it was like an intervention. Like,
I missed it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, you won't stop talking. It's really annoying. Like I would, cause I talk a lot already, but then you take drugs make you feel really confident, which is not a good thing.
Right.
If you're, it's the old Bill Cosby joke, they say cocaine intensifies your personality. What if you're an asshole,
Did he say asshole?
Yeah, he said asshole. Yeah.
When did he
Isn't it hilarious that this guy who's raped like every woman he's ever met, we're still at a place where like he cursed? He said,
I just don't know about it. When did he say? Was that a later bit?
No, it's from himself.
Oh, I didn't realize he says asshole in that. I can't remember.
Yeah, he says asshole. Yeah. I know. It's crazy. He really,
he really let me down. No, but there's a great thing I read the other day about like, if I controlled my drinking, I didn't enjoy it. And if I enjoyed my drinking, I couldn't control it.
Exactly. Either way, it sucks. There was a drunk guy who got kicked out of the show the other night. He was such a fucking piece of shit. I'm like walking back into the club and this is how much of an asshole he is. He goes up to me and he goes, "Hey man, you were great, Artie Lang." And then he just put his hand out. He insulted me and then asked me to like shake his hand upon the insult he said.
I don't get the Artie Lang thing. I guess because like I know you. There's so many people you get to know somebody when somebody says they look or sound like them. You're like, what? Like I know Artie pretty well. I know you really well. And I'm like, I'm not picking up the Artie Lang.
I mean,
You have round faces, I guess.
I don't want to like be like an asshole, but it's a little insulting. I mean, like, first of all, he's now deformed. Like the fact that you're like like he's a pig man from the Twilight Zone. I mean, he's a great guy, but like the fact that he's
a
like,
great guy.
but the fact that like he's much fatter and he's like, I think he's distinguished himself from me at this point.
Right.
It's like if Jonah Hill was in a fire and he looked like Freddy Krueger and everyone's just like, hey, Jonah Hill to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you know.
Well, I got two quick things. Remind me about Jonah Hill. But I get, like, I show Sarah, it's like appalling. I get, for whatever reason, because I have glasses or whatever, my teeth, I get 3 a day photos being like, hey, is that Joe List? Or someone tags me. And they are like the most horrendous looking people. I'm like, you can't even like believe it. It's guys with like skinny faces like Acme and like boo, like crazy retard redneck fucked up looking people. And I'm like, what's happening here? I'm like, this is insane. I feel like I'm okay.
It's just like the Elephant Man. Hey, Joe, I didn't know you were I didn't know you were in a David Lynch movie.
But the other thing, did I ever tell you this? I probably told you this story. I've told it before, but I did a gig, Trinity College. I think it was Trinity in Connecticut. I'll think of it. Oh, no, it wasn't Trinity. I'll think of it later. It doesn't matter. But it was a college like somewhere midway through Connecticut off 95. And Mitchell College in Connecticut. And I was doing a gig. My buddy Alvin was open for me. And it was like one of those things, it was like 40 kids. And in the middle of it, I just was doing crowd work or whatever. And I went, hey, this guy looks like Jonah Hill right here. Jonah Hill. It didn't get a good laugh. And I was like, all right, whatever. And then like 25 minutes later, I was like, not Jonah Hill. I just realized Seth Rogen. I confused Seth Rogen and Jonah Hill. And then the guy goes, I'm a woman. And it was so bad. Like, I was like, oh, that's why I know it. I called this poor, like, fat woman with short hair Jonah Hill. Nobody responded. And then I was like, oh, it must have been because I said the wrong actor.
That is so funny. Well, first of all, just say, like, I've never heard of someone being misgendered twice. Like the fact that you're like, like Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, no, John Belushi, like you're just listing all these men.
It was so bad. I mean, and she was like, she kind of smiled,
that
like, because she was like, realized how funny it was. But
I think a bit on that.
No, is it funny? Should I do it as a bit?
Amazing. That's great. That's so funny.
Now it's so sensitive, confusing genders or whatever. I don't know.
It's a hate crime, basically.
I know.
Jonah Hill lost a bunch of weight. I've always been compared to Jonah Hill, and then he lost a bunch of weight, and people would literally be like, "Hey, you look like a kind of like a fat Jonah Hill." Like it was just like the worst thing I could have ever heard in my life.
Well, Jonah Hill in Moneyball, so fat. I don't want to shift into the other podcast here, but he's so fat in Moneyball, and he's terrific in that movie.
Yeah, it's funny though. You say we don't like when people say we look like comics don't like that, and audiences think that's the one thing we want. Audiences literally think that we got into comedy for fans to come up and say we look like someone else. Like they're like, I'm going to go out of my way. I'm going to break into his green room just to let him know that he has no individuality and he looks like this other person who's already famous. So they don't need to continue. And I remember that the hard way. I texted you. I was like that guy. I texted you once because that show Camping came out.
Oh, I don't remember this.
Dunham. And they had a poster of it, and it was like cartoon characters of all the cast. And David Tennant was in it. And it looked it really did. It was a cartoon drawing, but it was basically you. And I texted you that thinking it'd be funny. I'd be like, hey, I see you're in, I was one of those guys. Hey, I see you're in camp. I don't think I knew you that well at the time. So I was just trying to like start a conversation. I was like, hey, I see you're in camping. And your response, you were so depressed by it that I felt really bad. You're like, I know it's ruining my life. Like you were like,
oh no. I think it might've been, I was getting a lot of that.
You were getting a lot of that. Do you remember that?
Vaguely. Yeah, kind of. I mean, I remember you desperately trying to penetrate my world, and it
was a fail. You were like, yeah, I'm really depressed. Like it was that thing where it's like, yeah, you don't want people to say you look like someone who's already famous, because then you're basically saying you don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything anymore. But someone already got. All we're hearing is someone already got there. before you.
Yeah, I mean, I get young John Cusack a lot. And I'm like, I'll take it. I love Cusack.
Are you hanging out at the School of the Blind? I don't know who's giving you the young John Cusack.
No, young, I get it a lot. Young John Cusack, look at this.
Oh, actually, I gotta see it now without the glasses. Without
The forehead, the glasses, I don't know. But let's move on from this stuff. But it's all very but it does, it's amazing how many little things start on social media where you just read the littlest thing and then you're just like unraveling. It's the worst thing that ever happened to any of us.
Oh, I wanted to talk about, I mean, I know you're the host, but I want to talk.
No, you host, fuck it.
The routine big shot when I go to my family's, because it was.
Yes, we were talking about that. That's a good thing to talk about.
Because I feel like the last time I did this pod, I feel like I had just come off, I was like in the middle of I was having a panic. It was like so raw. I was having a panic attack during it. It was like raw, but I feel much better these days.
Do you remember that you were the first episode and I texted you and said, hey, you're the first episode, and you went, wow, starting off with a nobody. I'm not a good businessman. In my mind, I was like, that was the best episode, I thought. And you had a good point. You're like, why not start with someone that's not completely unknown? But also, the most famous person I had done an episode with at that point was Ari Shafir. And right before the podcast came out, he fucking had the Kobe thing. So I had to be like, all right, I got to sit on this one for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're a bad businessman. I was just literally a last minute replacement, right?
No, well, we released 4, and I did think I thought that was the best example of what the show is and was going to be.
Well, also, it's like it was your show. You don't need to have. It was about you. You know, you don't need to have you don't need to have Alec Baldwin on the first one or whatever. But like,
well, the show's not about me, but
no, but I mean, like you already had like some fans who are trying to bring over. You know what I mean? I
think so. I hope so. You know what this is? This show's a small show with very appreciative fans,
which is great, and that that can blow up at any time. But you just gotta. If you like doing it, it helps, but this time I feel like, you ever go to therapy and you feel like you don't have any issues to talk about that week and it's kind of annoying. Like,
yes,
you wish you could just reschedule. Like, hey, I just don't have that much anxiety this week and I'm feeling pretty good. Can we just reschedule? Otherwise I'm just going to be making shit up. But then you get there and 20 minutes in, you're like, my father molested me. Like you realize you have all these problems.
Yeah, no, your therapist is always like, okay, sure, try me. But no, I have had that. And there's times where I'm like, I think we're just friends. Like I'm just kind of bullshitting with them.
I know.
But also you can get in trouble that way because what happens is you go in there feeling good and it has like an adverse effect because you do leave there being like upset about shit that you weren't upset about, which I don't always think is a positive.
No, I mean, that's the thing about anxiety in general is that like we live in this culture where it's all about like realizing your situation and being aware. And the bad thing is repression. The bad thing is Tony Soprano going, I don't have anxiety. But being over aware of something is also really bad. Like to constantly think and talk about anxiety will make it keep on going. I mean, you got to have a balance between not fully repressed and not like talking about it all the time.
Yeah, well, whatever you water grows, as they say. I mean, that's why it is like important to have gratitude lists and stuff and work on that kind of shit.
But, and I was about to make a joke. That's why this podcast is a bad idea. It's just reminding you of your anxiety. But kind of what I was saying before, when I'm feeling really good, I tend to try to forget I even have anxiety. And then when I have my next anxiety thing, because it's cyclical, I feel that much worse because I start to think I was completely better. And now I feel like that Pacino thing. I thought I was out and they sucked me back in. And it's like, it's that despair. It intensifies, which is why when you're feeling good, you still have to remind yourself you are a person with anxiety and talk about it and not try to escape that fact.
Exactly. And again, same with alcoholism is that it's easy to forget. That's why it's like you need a daily reprieve. But yeah, that is important. And I have that thing too, is that this is what my therapist helped me with, is I keep wanting to be cured, and there's no curing. It's only accepting and managing. And that's a mistake I made for years because I would like count days with no anxiety. I'm like, I'd go to therapy being like, I was freaking out about my tooth. I hadn't thought about anything physical in like 2 days. And he's like, why are you keeping track?
Yes.
It's no good. You can't keep score. All this stuff. Keeping score in general in relationships, in life, is never a good idea. Other than with sports, you need to keep score because we need.
And also, keeping score is the anxiety. Like to me, it's like when you're really not having anxiety, you don't think about it at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
Keeping score is part of the obsessive thinking, I think,
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's tough. Yeah, you'll never escape because we just want to feel normal. And there's a part of us that wishes like we just weren't born with this shit. You know what I mean? But we also like assume other people are more normal than us when they're not.
Right. It's like what I was talking about earlier, where I'm like, I feel like everyone else is working all day and I just can't get anything done. And then I talk to them and I'm like, I just watched season 9 of fucking This Old House or whatever.
Dude, everyone is literally in the bathroom crying with a gun in their mouth. It's all like, it's like a fucking, life is an illusion. Like, it's like this illusion where we all try to like look like we're put together and we're not. And it sucks because I think it makes anxiety worse because we all think other people are more adjusted. And then we blame ourselves for our anxiety. You know what I mean? We're like, why are you having this? Why can't you be normal? And if we only just knew that none of us are normal.
Yeah, and social media compounds that, of course, because everyone's like on a surfboard with the tits perfect, and then everyone's like, I got to kill myself because I got bad tits, and they have good tits.
Right, exactly. And there's so many things too where it's like people are so anxious they don't realize they have anxiety. Like I think pretty much everyone with anger management issues is literally someone who just cannot confront their anxiety. You know
well, that's where mindfulness comes in. Is like people. That's why I like Sam Harris's app, which I talk about all the time. Waking Up. It's like it's literally called Waking Up. Is like most people go through their, myself included, for most of my life, go through their life like in a weird fucking dream. Like they're not aware. That's why mindfulness is so amazing, because like people don't even realize that like most of their problems are stuff they're just thinking. It's not even reality. It's thoughts are just thoughts, and they're in the past or future. In fact, if you're in the present, it's almost impossible to be anything but calm.
Yes, exactly. And the answer is always, isn't it annoying that the answer, the answer is always, fuck. God damn it. Can you hear me?
That was perfect. Yes.
Shit, fuck. Stupid fucking cat.
I wish I could timestamp this. How do I timestamp? I got no clock. I mean, that was like a perfect clip. I said something so perfect, and then a cat dove through and knocked over your flowers or whatever.
You ever heard of the French philosopher Montaigne?
Ray LaMontagne, the singer? No, of course I haven't. Jesus.
Well, I don't know. Isn't it obnoxious to be like, well, you know what Montaigne says? Like, well, what's annoying?
No, this is how you say it. This is how you say it. There's a French philosopher named Montaigne that I like. And then I can cut and go, I know Montaigne. You go, oh, okay.
Okay, that's not obnoxious to assume you don't know it.
Well, you're not assuming. You're just talking about him.
Wow.
And then you give me the option to say, I know him.
Okay.
Yeah, well, here's my thing. If you're going to talk about a philosopher, I don't need to whatever. But one time you were like, you ever see On the Waterfront? Like if it's film, come on. Let me assume and then be surprised if I haven't seen it. But a French philosopher, what am I, an asshole? I know Balzac. I know him. I don't know his work. I just know his name. Funny, Balzac.
He's a novelist, but
yeah, I know he's a novelist.
I even said it in a country tone. I'm like, he's a novelist. I'm a douchebag.
For sure. But okay, so what'd the French asshole say?
He had a great quote about how like when I'm playing with my cat, who's to say I'm as much her plaything as she is mine? You know, like who's to say that she's not just thinking, oh, this is my toy I'm playing with? You know. You know, it's just the idea of like, looking at it from someone else's perspective, you know.
A fun exercise I like to do is when you're walking, and this I got from Waking Up app too, is you walk, and I think most of us kind of walk as though we're moving through Earth, and Earth is still and you're walking through it. But you can also, just without much effort, experientially, you're still, and then like Earth is just moving right through you. Through your consciousness. And it's a fun activity because it just shows you that like it's all appearances and consciousness and experiential.
That shit kind of freaks me out though. Montaigne also said one of the great things about anxiety, those who fear that they will suffer are already suffering in fear.
Ooh, that's very good.
That's a good one, right? But can I tell you I did TM today? Can I tell you this thought I had while I was doing TM that was like upsetting?
Yes. I always love that you say, can I say this? As though I'm going to be like, no, we don't have time.
No. I was doing TM and I just remember I was doing it on the way and I was like, oh, I'm going to do your podcast later. I was like, oh, I should remember this. I was doing TM And I just had the thought in my head while I was doing it. I had tried to rewatch. It's gonna be a little movie thing. I tried to rewatch City Slickers last night. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of City Slickers?
Best day of my life.
And it's a great movie, by the way. We got to talk about it on the other pod. But there's something upsetting watching it, which is that, I turned it on, and obviously the synopsis is he's having a midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
He's like middle-aged, having a crisis. And at one point in the movie, in the beginning, she says his age, and it's my age. And I was like, oh, I'm middle-aged. Like, it was just a realization, like, I'm middle-aged.
Yeah.
It was the saddest awareness. My saddest awareness of mortality has now officially been from rewatching City Slickers and realizing that I actually am middle-aged,
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I have a similar experience. I mean, obviously, I'm like a Springsteen maniac. Do you know him? He's a singer, songwriter. He has a band that backs him up sometimes.
Yeah, the guy does a couple good Dylan covers. Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, he plays long shows. But in the song My Hometown, I mean, the last verse, he's like wrapping up. He's like, I'm 35 and I got a boy of my own. And I'm like, oh, I'm like 4 years past his like time to head south.
I think about that all the time with age shit in movies. I'm like, how old are they? Oh, they're like, I'm always so conscious. Well, of course, Bruce Springsteen also literally said, I'm not getting younger, or we're not getting younger anymore at 21 or something. What's the line from Thunder Road? We're not that young anymore.
Oh, yeah, we ain't that young anymore.
But he was 21 when he wrote that. But that's precocious.
Yeah, it's about high school.
But that also is like something you say when you are very young. You know what I mean?
I think he was older than that too.
Okay, but anyway, so I'm sitting there meditating in the Uber coming here, and I'm remembering City Slickers, and then and I'm thinking, oh, I'm middle aged, and then I started thinking, in terms of my comedy career, like doing comedy, I got probably 20 years of a career, left,
What? Why?
I don't know, 60, and then that where things end.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, for some reason, in my head, I was like, the next 20 years are probably like where it's at.
Yes, I think that, but you never know. I don't know. I mean, like, there's no fucking rules written, especially if you're writing. A lot of directors, filmmakers, writers do great stuff.
Scorsese's like 95. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And there's a lot of comics that are.
But anyway, that was just a thought I had. And then I was like, oh, 20 years. That's not that long. And then I just felt like I just had that feeling of being pushed towards my death. You know what I mean? You just feel like you're being pushed towards your death. And I'm sitting there. This is me meditating. This is me having meditation. I'm like, because sometimes if you look at life the wrong way, you feel like it's just a hand just pushing you towards the void. You know what I mean? But then I was like, it's all about the moment.
Yeah. You come back to the moment.
Yeah.
And that's you trying to control something you can't control, which is a fun activity. My friend always tells me, when you're suffering, pause and ask yourself, what am I trying to control right now?
Time.
That's a really great activity. It helps, but the answer is always something. If you're suffering, you're trying mentally to control something that you can't control, whether it be if a woman likes you or if someone's going to blow you or if you're going to, how long you're going to live or whatever.
If you could control it, you'd be doing the activity that makes you control it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you're like, I wish I was in better shape, you could just be running at the gym right there. You could be, anxiety is all, yeah, exactly. Anxiety is always about something that you have no control over. Someone's text that doesn't come back and you're trying to think your way out of something that there's no answer, which is ultimately what death to me is like the core of anxiety is death. And when you're freaking out about death, you're trying to think your way out of something that you can't think your way out of,
Yeah, it's hard and you can't control it. And there's also, again, it comes back to like perspective. You have to be like, no one wants to die, but it'd be worse if you didn't die.
If you like live forever.
Yeah, if you're like 348 years old, that would suck. And it would, and life would be meaningless. It's like when you talk about good and bad are the same side of the same coin. Life and death are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, it kind of sucks. It's like not existing for all eternity sucks, but living forever also sucks. We're kind of in a shitty situation.
And also not existing forever is like again an appearance in consciousness. Like you're never sitting around the couch watching Full House and be like, God, that really sucked when I wasn't around forever before I was born. You're not experiencing that.
Right. Yeah. Because the truth is with death, the reason you freak out, you're not actually you can't imagine you not exist because that's just nothing. So you're trying to imagine yourself not existing. I don't know if we talked about this in the first pod, but you're trying to imagine yourself not existing, but that's impossible. So you're just imagining you're like the idea of your eyes closed for all eternity, and that's freaking you out.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you're in
But
this
it's like
weird
that-
black space, and then
but
like
that's
everyone's
not-
at the mall. Yeah,
But that's not right either. You know what I mean? So like you're kind of, and the truth is when you die, if you don't exist, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's afterlife, who knows? But if you die, and you don't exist, like that's actually the one time in your life where you're not going to have anxiety.
exactly. You're relieved of all your anxiety, pain, suffering, and you're just left over the loved ones to be like, oh my god.
But
And
I
that's
also,
fun.
but I also think it's okay to worry about that. Like some people are like, "Who cares? You don't exist. You didn't exist before you're born. Whatever." I hate those people who are like not concerned by it.
No, they're lying.
Yeah, yeah,
They're lying
liars.
because if someone said, "Hey, you have cancer," they'd fucking lose their minds. Of course.
Yeah, but
for
the
a while.
people are like, "Well, so it's just like what it just existed for non-eternity. Who gives a shit? Whatever." But like, but yeah, it all comes down to death. But I think like figuring out it to me always like I had a terrible anxiety meltdown the last couple of years before the pandemic.
Mhm.
And I think for the first time ever, I mean, I think I was talking about it in the middle of it the last time, but like I was on medication for 10 years and then I got off it and had all this terrible anxiety. And for the first time in my life, I had to learn coping mechanisms because instead I just did medication, didn't do anything, And I've really tried to learn coping mechanisms, and I'm really grateful for my anxiety because it's made me. I think learning how to manage anxiety is kind of basically learning how to manage anything in life.
Absolutely. No,
It's the meaning of existence almost to how to learn how to deal with it.
I feel that way all the time. I mean, like I'm great, and that's the answer to anxiety about death is to appreciate life, and and have gratitude because it will all go away. Literally every single thing ends: the relationships, a beverage, a
Right.
daytime, all that stuff. So
This is so-
embracing that, and that's what the Stoics do. I got my Stoicism book over here somewhere, but that's what you got to do is just like embrace a guide to the good life.
It'd be so fun. Oh, I've read that. It'd be so funny if.
I interviewed him on this podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It'd be so funny if you were like, "Where's my fucking Stoic book? I had it fucking right here. Where the fuck is it?"
I got all kinds of self-help. Pema Chodron is over here, and Judd.
Yeah, well,
Brewer interviewed.
I maybe I learned this a little from you, but sometimes people come to me, they get anxiety, and I'm so quick to like help them and send them shit. And I realized at a certain point, like, you spend so long trying to figure out your own problems, and you realize you never will. Your life is just kind of a mysterious chaos. But if you can help other people with their problems, it can distract you from your own, and that's kind of the answer anyway. Like the answer is help other people, and then you don't have to get caught up and lost in your own nonsense.
Yeah, that's the most important thing I've discovered in the last 7 or 8 years of my life is it gives value to yourself and your life, and it helps other people, obviously.
It's selfish and it's selflessness. I'm excited. Like when people come to me with anxiety shit, I really want to help them, and I'm excited to. It takes away some of my own. A lot of times I'm feeling anxious then, and I just focus on them, and it takes away from me a little. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah. That's that anxiety in general is self-centered in ways, of course.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this podcast, which it's a lot of effort and anxiety, ironically, and no money, but I get a lot of nice messages from people who are really grateful, and I'm grateful to you for doing it.
Yeah, this podcast is that exactly that thing. It's like helping. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, who knows if there's any meaning to life, but I think one of the most important things is like, helping people to distract from your own insurmountable problems.
Yeah. And that is like all of life is us being there for each other and taking care of each other. Because what else is there? I mean, that's the nature of existing as a human being on a society.
But and also so much of meditation, I think, and I tell this to my therapist, is trying to treat your own feelings as if someone else was telling you them, which is the way to disconnect your thoughts, because all your thoughts are connected to feelings that make you so terrified of everything, right? And you get overwhelmed by the feelings. So I'll freak out because, I texted something to Esty at the cellar and she didn't text me back, and I'm freaking out. And it's a thought, but nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It's nothing inherently bad. It's a thought. Have you heard of Shakespeare? That's from Hamlet. But it's a thought, but it's attached to these feelings that freak me out. But then I have to tell myself, imagine if Caitlin told me that happened, what would I tell to Caitlin? And I'd say, quit fucking worrying about it. It's not a big deal. You know what I mean? So in a way, I always try to, whenever I'm having really big problems, I try to imagine a friend telling me those problems and me having the perspective to realize it's not a big deal. We almost want to treat ourselves with the kind of like objectiveness we would treat a friend's problems with.
Of course, yeah. That's something I say all the time, is be as kind to yourself as you would be to someone else. Which again, if my wife was like, "Yeah, I'm having a hard time writing," I would never be like, "Yeah, because you're a fucking piece of shit, you loser." Now sit down there and write. And the reason if you don't come up with anything funny, it's because you don't have it anymore and you lost it and you were always a hack.
Yeah, imagine
that's how we're talking to ourselves. I tried to do it as a bit. I did it for a bit as a while. It never worked.
It is true. Like, I think mindfulness allows you to be aware of, because at first we don't even realize the mean thoughts we're saying to ourselves. Like, we do not. It's crazy. It's literally like we're literally calling us a fucking piece of shit loser. We don't even realize we're saying it.
Yeah.
And yeah, if we talk to other people that way, we would just be an insane. Like if my friend was just like, I was at my parents' house and I ate a bunch that weekend, and I'm just like, you fat piece of shit. No one will ever fuck you ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I literally did this as a bit and it never worked. It was so frustrating to me because I thought it was hilarious. But
that's funny. Yeah, like,
whatever.
Yeah. So but also it's talking to your friend with. Okay.
I just knocked over my fucking audio thing here. I think it's okay. Do I sound the same?
Yeah, you even have a cat jump on you.
No, I'm just an asshole.
But it's and I know you probably want to wrap this up, but like,
yes.
I just want to say one last thing, because it is like, talk to yourself like you talk to your friend, but it's also, it's the caringness you'd show a friend, but it's also sometimes the lack of caring you'd show to a friend too that's helpful, because we overly care about our own problems. Like I felt really run down last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I'm like, I have COVID. I'm going to die. Being sick is awful. You know what I mean? Maybe I should. Hello.
No, I'm listening. I'm realizing your light is like a strobe light and people are going to hate it.
Oh, shit.
I don't know why it's like that. I guess it's his overhead. It's only been doing it for the whole episode.
I think it's only when this is gonna be a very anxious episode.
Yeah, when you lean in, it whitewashes.
Shit, fuck. Anyway,
that's all right. No one cares about your face.
But I was saying it's caring about your friend, but also like if my friend was just like, I feel really run down this weekend, I'd be like, yeah, who gives a shit? That happens.
right.
I'd be like, who gives a shit? That happens. It's not COVID. You're gonna be fine. So sometimes we need to treat ourselves with the lack of caring we treat our friends. You know what I mean? Like you told me you're worried about moles a week ago,
Yeah.
And I didn't give a shit because I knew you were fine. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you should have treated yourself the way I treated you when you told me, which was like, you're fine. Who cares?
That's what my therapist was so good at, that at first was off-putting, and we would argue about it because I'm like, I'm having like toothache and I have to go have a root canal. Like it's great. And he'd be like, it's just a root canal.
Yeah.
And you're like, are you crazy? Like, I got to go in there. It's got the thing. And he's like, yeah, it's a dentist. No one likes the dentist. He would say, nobody likes the dentist. He's like, root canal's not fun. There's nothing fun about that. But he's like, that's life.
Because you know what the difference is? You're saying it, but with you, it's attached to all the feelings. And with him, when you think about your friend, you don't think about the feelings they're going through as much, which is good. You want to separate yourself from your emotions. That's part of meditation, separating yourself from your thoughts and your feelings and like looking at yourself objectively. So the way you look at a friend going, like you told me you were going to get a root canal, I'll be like, all right, Joe's getting a root canal.
Right.
That's all I would say, but for you, it's, I'm getting a root canal. Right. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it's good to look at you with the lack of empathy you'd have for a friend.
Yeah, well, Mel Brooks said it the best. I mean, that Mel Brooks thing that I'm sure you've heard. Yeah, when he said, well, the audience might not know it, so if you just let me tell it.
Say it.
Where he said, tragedy is I get a paper cut on my thumb. I call in my family and I call an ambulance and I put a Band-Aid and hydrogen peroxide and I'm thinking about it. I ice it and I'm holding it above my heart. And comedy is you're walking down the street, you fall in a manhole cover and die. What do I care?
We got to treat ourselves like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next time for the listeners, whenever you're freaking out, just imagine your friend calling you and being like, I'm having a lot of anxiety, and how little you really give a shit. And that'll help you through it.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you did service for me. You helped me here because I had someone cancel last minute, and then you swooped in.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. And for the folks at home that don't realize this, we're in the same building right now.
We're
just
literally
easier.
across the hallway.
Sarah won't let Jews in the house, so we so we had to come up with something fast. But I appreciate it. Plug some things. Plug our podcast.
Oh yeah, well you could hear both of us on our other podcast. I'm not part of this podcast. But,
Absolutely not. No.
But it's called wait, what's it called?
It's called Joe and Raanan Talk Movies, which we would have had a better name, but I just thought it was a one-off.
I know we should change the name because we're having my name in it, which is so hard to spell.
That's all right.
Anyway, so come listen to Joe and Raanan Talk Movies to hear our takes on movies. And yeah, I'm all over the place. I don't know. Do I plug things? What do you plug?
Yeah, plug. I don't know. I don't know.
Anxiety or
I plug my own shit, but you can plug whatever.
Do I plug? I don't know. See me. I got dates on my Instagram and stuff.
Solid. I got dates. I'm at Salt Lake City, July 30th and 31st. And subscribe and thanks for and leave a nice review, 5-star review. And yeah, and go subscribe to Joe and Raanan Talk Movies or watch it on YouTube.
Let me actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Let me just
go ahead.
Can you go on my YouTube? My album is, I filmed it. I'm trying to edit it to put it on YouTube, like as a special. So subscribe to my YouTube page.
Yes.
I felt like I'm saying that to you specifically. I mean, if you wanted to, but
I will.
Subscribe to my YouTube page. It's Raanan. I have two. I got to delete one. So it's the one.
You do. Consolidate.
Yeah. There's the one that has more followers.
All right. All right. Kick ass. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. This is fun. All right.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Mindful Metal Jacket is hosted by comedian Joe List. Produced by Joe List. Edited by Matt Kleinschmidt. Executive producers Robert Kelly and Matt Kleinschmidt for the Laugh Button Podcasts.